Don't let this crazy season that we're facing and the challenges that come with it to result in your relationships with others getting worse. Instead, look for ways to redeem this moment and redeem the time so that we can all come out on the other side of this pandemic with actual healthier relationships. Hello again, friend, and welcome back to our special edition of Sex Addicted Christian, Quarantine and Porn. I'm your guide, Jimmy Trent, and it's such a pleasure to be with you today. Today is our final episode in the mini-series. I want to briefly address these three different categories and the unique challenges and potential opportunities that you may face during this time of quarantine. As we jump in, I want to make sure that I remind you of my free gift, The 4 Pillars of a Porn-Free Life. This is a guide that I have written that I want to give to you. I believe there are 4 essential pillars that we must establish in our lives if we want to live free from our addiction to porn and sex. The first is crushing the shame. Second, cultivating community. Third, uncovering the unseen. And lastly, taking action. So if you want to grab this guide for free, just go over to sexaddictedchristian.com, and right there you can click a button and download it and begin this work towards freedom today. So the first person I want to speak to today are the singles. When you are single, it makes it easier for you to hide your addiction. And so now, with this quarantine, you potentially are isolated from relationships even more than normal. And so your ability to hide your addiction is even easier. This is especially true for you singles that live alone without any roommates. So you may be used to regular coffee dates or small groups that you attend or work friends that you have. I don't know where all you tend to go in your relationships, but now in isolation, there's less opportunities to be in community with people. Now, we talked a lot about that in episode 2 of this mini-series, so go back if you need to dive deeper into how to overcome that. But for now, it's important that we acknowledge that as a single, for many of you, you are more isolated than most everyone else. And so we've got to recognize that as a challenge and consider the opportunities. So here's the opportunity. Pursue others. Don't wait on them to pursue you. Right now, people are overwhelmed in general. And if you as a single are going to wait on others to pursue you, you may find that this isolation is even more intense than you expected it to be. So please don't use this quarantine and isolation as an excuse as a single for your lack of community. We've got to remember that addicts love blaming other people and circumstances for their addiction. Don't be that person. I know I'm speaking frankly here, and oftentimes that's what an addict needs to hear is frank talk. Don't make excuses right now. You may be saying, well, no one's reaching out to me. Nobody's called me. I'm just sitting here all alone. These are ways to deflect and detract from the freedom journey that you are seeking to be on. Don't go there and end up in a posture of self-pity where you just feel worse about yourself and then even more begin to crave porn as a way to medicate away the pain of the relationships that you want to have. Instead, take the initiative, make phone calls, send text, join small group Zoom calls, do the things that you need to do to put yourself into community. So singles, I love you and I'm praying for you. Take the initiative, call someone, push into the community. Okay, second person, spouses, husbands, and wives. Here's what you need to know about this moment. Marital conflict will be on the rise during this quarantine. I'm fairly certain that most of you are like, yeah, I already know, I'm already sick of him or I'm already sick of her. Sadly, porn is not the only thing on the rise during this pandemic. Domestic abuse and child abuse are also rising in this moment. What we need to recognize is that many sex addicts are fueled in their addiction by their poor relationships, by the relationships in which they find themselves in conflict. These conflicts and resentments that we carry around with us act as fuel or gasoline on our addiction. And so now, during this season of being quarantined with our families, many of you who are carrying around these resentments are going to be faced with them in a more intense way than you ever have before, because you've been able to escape to work or hobbies or hanging with friends and avoiding the conflicts in your life. So what's the opportunity then? The opportunity that you have right now is to resolve the conflicts that exist in your life. And so if you've been avoiding dealing with the things in your marriage, now is the time. I am praying for your marriages as God has brought you closer to your spouse during this season in proximity. I'm praying that He will also bring you closer relationally. It's a sad thought that runs through my head that for many of us, this pandemic will result in more hostile and distant marriages. I'm asking you to reject that thought, to reject that as a possibility, and to pursue unity and love and grace in your marriage. So do this. Sit down with your spouse, confess to them that historically you've neglected to deal with the important things in the relationship, and ask them to join you in conversation to really work on the things that you've avoided to do in the past. If you need to get help, ask for help. Ask a pastor. Ask one of your small group leaders from the church. Ask a friend whose marriage you respect, or ask a counselor. Find some kind of help during this season. Redeem this moment and grow your relationship with your spouse. Okay, lastly, parents, let's talk for a second. The unique challenge that I think you're going to face right now is becoming a much more controlling person. As I mentioned in the previous point to spouses, porn isn't the only thing on the rise. It's also domestic disputes and child abuse. Unfortunately, what's happening is that our desire for comfort and our desire for things to go the way we want them to go will oftentimes be taken out on our children. And so when they aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, or when they're getting into things that they're not supposed to be getting into, this is a challenge for our desire to control. So mom and dad, listen to me. You cannot take out your issues on your kids. Don't believe that they are the problem. You've got issues that you need to resolve. Deal with your stuff and deal with your kids according to what's happening in their world. That encouragement is extremely difficult right now because you are feeling the pressure of doing things that you've never had to do before and being in closer proximity to your children's behavior than maybe you have before. You're working from home. You're becoming a homeschool teacher. There are many, many challenges that you are facing that create for you a level of stress and pressure, but you can't let those things be taken out on your children. When we are overwhelmed, we tend to sin. So here's your opportunity then in this moment. Become a learner and a lover of your child. I'm certain that all of you parents out there that are listening, I'm certain that it was always your intent to be the best mom or dad that you could possibly be for your child. But you may have felt that life has just kind of gotten in the way of that, and you haven't had the opportunities. But here's the really neat thing. You've got more time to spend with your child right now. So capitalize on this moment. Find ways to learn your child all the more. Find ways to begin to learn who your kid is more. Play games with them. Go on a walk with them. Have conversations that you haven't had before because you were too tired because you got home from work late, or whatever other things used to get in the way. Now you've got chances and opportunities to learn and love your child. Time is on your side. So use some of this extra time to invest in the relationship with your child. So the bottom line is this. Don't let this crazy season that we're facing and the challenges that come with it to result in your relationships with others getting worse. Instead, look for ways to redeem this moment and redeem the time so that we can all come out on the other side of this pandemic with actual healthier relationships. And here's an interesting point as a side effect of this choice that you're making. You'll struggle with porn less too, because your poor relationships feed and fuel your porn addiction. So, friend, it's so good to be with you today. As I've mentioned before, I want to give you my free gift, The 4 Pillars of a Porn-Free Life. Head over to sexaddictedchristian.com before you sign off today. Download the 4 Pillars Guide and work hard during this season where you've got time to do it. Make the most of this. Thanks for tuning in this week. I love you guys, and I look forward to seeing you again next week on the next episode. God bless.